It is July 11th, 1985. The president of the Coca-Cola Company is sitting in front of the world press, sweating under the hot studio lights. He isn't there to announce a record profit. He isn't there to unveil a revolutionary new product. He is there to apologize. For 99 years, Coca-Cola had been the unshakable king of American culture, a symbol of stability, patriotism, and happiness. But in a mere 79 days, the company had managed to spark a nationwide revolt that bordered on mass hysteria. They had received thousands of angry phone calls. People were hoarding old bottles in basements like survivalists preparing for nuclear winter. They hadn't just changed the recipe. According to the American public, they had committed treason. This is the story of the greatest marketing blunder in history. But more importantly, it is the story of a ruthless war between two corporate giants who hated each other so much they forgot who they were actually selling to. To understand the disaster of 1985, we have to understand the arrogance that caused it. For the first half of the 20th century, Coca-Cola wasn't just a soda. It was the soda. They had negotiated exclusive contracts with the U.S. military during World War II to ensure every soldier could get a Coke for 5 cents, regardless of where they were on the planet. They had literally woven their brand into the fabric of American victory. Then there was Pepsi. Pepsi Cola was a desperate, scrappy nuisance. They had gone bankrupt, not once, but twice. In the 1930s, they were so destitute that they actually offered to sell the entire company to Coca-Cola. Coke declined. They didn't even see Pepsi as worth buying. It was an insult that would fuel a blood feud for the next 50 years. Rejected and desperate, Pepsi decided that if they couldn't win on prestige, they would win on pure economics. During the Great Depression, Pepsi began selling 12 ounces for the same price as Coke 6.5 ounces. It was a poor man's drink. It wasn't classy. It wasn't iconic. But it was a bargain. But by the 1970s, the economy had recovered, and being the cheap option wasn't enough. Pepsi needed an identity. Under a new, aggressive management team, they realized they couldn't beat Coke at the tradition game. So they did the opposite. Coke was your grandfather's drink. It was yesterday. Pepsi branded itself as the choice of a new generation. This wasn't just a slogan. It was psychological warfare. If you drank Coke, you were old and dusty. If you drank Pepsi, you were young, vibrant, and cool. And then in 1975, Pepsi launched a weapon that would almost destroy their rival, the Pepsi Challenge. It was a brilliant marketing stunt masquerading as scientific research. Blind taste tests in shopping malls across America. 1 sip of cup A, 1 sip of cup B. The results were devastating for Atlanta. In blind tests, the majority of Americans preferred Pepsi. Inside Coca-Cola HQ, panic began to set in. They were losing market share every single year. The unthinkable was happening. Goliath was dying. Enter Roberto Goizueta. Goizueta became the CEO of Coca-Cola in 1981. He was a chemist by trade, a man of logic, data, and hard numbers. He didn't care about nostalgia. He cared about winning. He looked at the data from the Pepsi Challenge and realized the uncomfortable truth. Pepsi was winning because it was sweeter. Human biology prefers sweetness in small doses, like a single-sip test. Goizueta believed the problem was the product itself. The 99-year-old secret formula was obsolete, so they launched Project Kansas. It was the most rigorous testing procedure in the history of consumer goods. They spent $4 million. They conducted nearly 200,000 blind taste tests. The results were undeniable. The new formula, a sweeter, smoother concoction, didn't just beat Pepsi. It crushed them. It beat the old Coke, and it beat Pepsi by a wide margin. Scientifically, logically, statistically, it was the perfect product. On April 23, 1985, Goizueta stepped onto the stage at the Lincoln Center. He announced that the old Coca-Cola was gone forever. Production would stop immediately. He expected applause. He expected a surging stock price. What he got was a national nervous breakdown. The backlash was instantaneous and visceral. You see, Goizueta was a chemist. He understood ingredients, but he completely misunderstood branding. People didn't drink Coca-Cola because it was a scientifically optimal balance of sugar and carbonation. They drank it because it was their childhood. It was the drink they had at their first baseball game. It was the drink they shared on a first date. By killing the old formula, Coke hadn't just changed the product. They had told millions of Americans that their memories didn't matter. The Coca-Cola hotline, which usually received 400 calls a day, was suddenly receiving 1,500 calls a day. They had to hire extra operators who listened to grown adults crying, screaming, and threatening boycotts. One letter addressed to the CEO asked for his autograph because, as the writer put it, the signature of one of the dumbest executives in American business history will be worth a fortune someday. Over at Pepsi, they were popping champagne. They gave their employees a day off. They ran full-page ads declaring victory. The other guy blinked. They said, Pepsi knew something Coke didn't. They knew that Coke had just surrendered its greatest asset, its history. Sales of new Coke flatlined. The company's stock began to wobble. Bottlers, the independent business owners who actually distributed the soda, were furious. They were being abused by customers in the streets. Goizueta, the man of logic, was staring at a phenomenon that defied all his data. The blind taste test said people loved the taste. The reality said people hated the idea. The pressure became unbearable. The perfect product was destroying the company. And so, we return to July 11th, the surrender.
All right, if we could just have your attention for a moment. We know there have been many questions regarding the recent changes.
Coca-Cola announced a return of the original formula, rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic. The reaction was even crazier than the backlash. It was headline news on every major network, interrupting regular broadcasting. In the U.S. Senate, a politician called it a meaningful moment in American history. Sales didn't just recover, they exploded. In a strange twist of fate, the new Coke disaster ended up being the best thing that ever happened to the company. By taking the product away, they reminded the world how much they loved it. The emotional bond between consumer and the brand was reignited with a passion that no advertising campaign could have ever bought. Conspiracy theorists to this day argue that it was all a planned stunt, a 4D chess move to revitalize the brand. But as Donald Keogh famously said, we're not that dumb and we're not that smart. The Cola Wars didn't end there, but the dynamic changed forever. Coke realized they could never be beaten on tradition. They secured their place as the king of soda. Pepsi, realizing they could never fully kill the red giant, made a brilliant pivot of their own. They diversified, merging with Frito-Lay, acquiring Gatorade and Tropicana. Today, while Coke sells more soda, PepsiCo is often a larger company by revenue because they own the snack aisle. The new Coke disaster is taught in business schools around the world, but the lesson is often simplified. It's not just about don't fix what isn't broken. It is a lesson about data versus humanity. Coca-Cola had all the data. They had the science. They had the blind taste tests. They were objectively right. But in business, being right doesn't matter if you don't understand how people feel. A brand isn't a liquid in a bottle. It isn't a logo. A brand is a story that people tell themselves about who they are. Coke forgot their story, and for 79 days, the world punished them for it. So, are you a Coke person or a Pepsi person? And does the taste actually matter? Or is it just the marketing working on your brain? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.